Hi everybody, and I want to welcome you to Chronically Rah Rah, Fight for the Answers, Fight for a Cure. And today is October 2nd, and so I can't believe we're in October already. I know we say this every year, but but anyway, October is Dysautonomia Awareness Month. And so every day in October, I'm either going to be doing a live video or like a pre-recorded video talking more about dysautonomia and the different types of dysautonomia, or I'll be putting information on my page. So I'll be putting information to on the Chronically Rah Rah page. So I just want to thank everybody for being on here. I know how you can be spending your time, and you're choosing to spend your time with me, so I really appreciate that. And today what we're going to delve in is, excuse me, apologies. Today we're really going to delve into what is dysautonomia. So yesterday on my personal page, we kind of talks about it a little bit, just to give an introduction. But today we're really going to talk about what dysautonomia is, and a particular form of dysautonomia that I have, which is POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And we're going to be talking about both of those today. So dysautonomia is an umbrella term, and it's used to describe various conditions that cause a malfunction of the autonomic nervous system. And yesterday I was talking about the autonomic nervous system and how it controls most of the essential functions of the body that we don't consciously think about. So such as your breathing, your heart rate, your body temperature, your blood pressure, dilation and constriction of the pupils. So stuff, like I said, stuff that we don't think about, that we just put completely on autopilot. This is what the autonomic nervous system does for us. But in cases where the autonomic nervous system isn't functioning properly, that's where the dysautonomia comes in. And you'll see dysautonomia in several different forms. So dysautonomia can occur as a primary condition. So meaning it's just a condition that happened itself, and there's no underlying cause. Or it will happen as a secondary condition, which in my case, my dysautonomia is secondary to my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So POTS can be associated secondary with diseases such as Parkinson's disease, Sjogren's syndrome, or diabetes. And some of the more common forms of the dysautonomia include neurocardiogenic syncope. So these are different types of dysautonomia. Postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which is what I have. Orthostatic intolerance, which orthostatic intolerance basically means your blood pressure drops really fast, and you'll find that happens like when you're going from sitting to a standing position. So our blood supply, it's flowing all throughout our body, and it's doing that through gravity. And like, think of it almost as like a vacuum system. So it just goes up and gravity takes it down, and then you've got functions in the body that allow your blood to constrict and pull that up. So with the orthostatic intolerance, what happens is your vessels don't constrict, and so your blood pressure drops. And it's so we're not really sure how many people have some type of dysautonomia, but it's estimated Postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome itself is estimated to affect anywhere between, the numbers vary, but anywhere between 1 to 3 million Americans. And then there's one, the Dysautonomia Awareness Network. They estimate about 500,000. So really anywhere between 500,000 to about 3 million Americans a year are affected just by POTS alone. But there's not enough long-term studies with that to get an exact number. And it's also because it's very hard to diagnose. So with that said, in a world view, an estimated 11 million people have postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Because of this, it's considered, even though it's a syndrome, it's still considered a rare disease. So, sorry, I'm looking at my notes really quick. So with dysautonomia is one of those invisible illnesses. So, I have a lot of people tell me, for example, well, you don't look sick. So, well, that's great, and thank you. However, I am. So, not all illnesses are visible, but you don't see it on the outside because, I don't have cancer and I'm not losing my hair, or, I don't have a lot of scarring, so it's all internal, and so that's why it's considered an invisible illness. So there's currently no cure for dysautonomia or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So, but researchers are really working, and they've been working more, especially within the past decade, to find a cure. So, but it also comes with more of, we don't know if dysautonomia, and particularly POTS, is an autoimmune issue or if it's a mast cell issue. So, and like I said yesterday, your mast cells are they help you release histamine, so it's a white blood cell. So it's a type of cell that's derived from the myeloid system cell, and it's part of the immune and neuroimmune systems that are your mast cells are very rich in histamine and heparin. So when you have a condition such as mast cell activation syndrome, what happens is your body is just randomly firing off these mast cells and just releasing histamine all over the place. And so that's where that ties into POTS, is they don't know if it's an issue with mast cells firing all over the place or if it's an autoimmune issue. So for POTS, we're going to go ahead and switch over to POTS, which is what I have. Again, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And it is a form of dysautonomia that it's actually a form of orthostatic intolerance. It's associated with the presence of excessive tachycardia and many other symptoms. So POTS patients often have, they found that POTS patients often have hypovolemia, which is low blood volume, and high levels of plasma norepinephrine while standing, reflecting increased sympathetic nervous system action. So basically with POTS patients, we tend to have low blood pressure. So we have low blood pressure, low blood volume, and also since especially with Ehlers-Danlos patients such as myself, our veins aren't contracting the way that they're supposed to when we're in a standing position, so the blood pools, which causes that excessive hypovolemia and your heart rate to go up. and passing out, because with the blood pooling, what your heart is working overtime to get that blood to your brain. And so when your brain is losing that oxygenated blood, that's when the dizziness and the fainting occur. So 50% of POTS patients have small fiber neuropathy that impacts their their pseudomotor nerves. And many POTS patients also experience fatigue, headaches, lightheadedness, heart palpitations, exercise intolerance. We do not do exercise. Like, we stand up and we're like, woo! I got a workout today. So myself, for example, I can stand up, or not stand up, but like, I take a bath and I'm done. Like, that's all she wrote. Just even a simple bath, because I can no longer stand in the shower, but a simple bath will just send my heart rate like into the 160s. And oftentimes I have to go and lay down after a bath just because I'm so exhausted. We often get really bad nausea, diminished concentration, and this kind of goes to, because we're not getting enough oxygen to our brains, we're getting brain fog is what they call it. So in my case in particularly, I suffer from really bad aphasia and short-term memory loss. My memory loss is like, my short-term memory is almost non-existent now. So, and it will start with things like, for me, it started with things like, where did I put my keys? Where did I put my cell phone? To now, it's basically, it's at the point now where I don't remember if I've taken medicines. And that's not good. That can be really dangerous, especially with all the medicines that I'm on. So we also experience like coldness or tingling in our extremities. So like, our hands will get really cold, our feet will get really cold. My feet are always really cold. And then we also experience other stuff like Raynaud's phenomenon. And basically what Raynaud's phenomenon is you get blood pooling in your hands and your extremities. So you'll see, here's a little bit of it, but you can see like the white in the red. Like, I've got, let me make sure that's not dirt. I don't want to, yeah, so like, I've got some like blood pooling coming in here and a slow capillary refill. Even doing something like this, like, my hand is already starting to go numb just because I have such a hard time circulating my blood. Patients can develop a reddish purple color in the legs upon standing. And I think I've taken a couple pictures of that before, but if I haven't, I will, and I'll put that up. As far as a quality of life for POTS patients, I can say, based on my experience, my quality of life blows hard. That's just the unfortunate truth. My quality of life is just, for me, everything revolves around my medical conditions, unfortunately. And so I tire out very easily, or I can't sleep at all. You know, every once in a while I'll get these short bursts of energy. And so I try to do, you know, when we get those bursts of energy, we're like, yes! You know, we think we can take on the world. And so we're trying to, you know, get as much done as possible, but then we spend a couple days making up for that. So doctors like to compare POTS patients to like patients on dialysis for kidney failure, or COPD patients. We often get kind of like put in that same peg hole when it comes to quality of life, how our, you know, and our expectancy is. And as far as life expectancy for POTS, depending on when you were diagnosed with it, and depending on how severe it is, they don't have enough long-term information to know exactly how long somebody has POTS for. If it stays forever, if you end up having a shortened lifespan, they really don't know. They say 5 years, and in younger people it will resolve itself. But if you're older with POTS, you're stuck with it. But again, they just don't have they don't know, because they haven't been able to study enough people. So hopefully in a couple of decades, we'll have enough information to say, you know, this is the life expectancy of a POTS patient, you know, if they're have severe POTS. Some patients don't have severe POTS. You know, some it just affects them a little bit. Others, like myself, it takes us down hard. So 80% of the POTS patients are female, and generally get diagnosed around childbearing years. For myself, I didn't get diagnosed until I was 32 or 30. No, I was diagnosed this year with POTS. And for the longest time, I thought it was just my asthma. But as I kept on getting dizzier doing the littlest things, and the more I researched, I found, you know, I saw POTS, and I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. And so what they do is a tilt table test, and you can do a poor man's tilt table test at home. You lay flat for 10 minutes. You don't move, you don't do anything, you lay flat for 10 minutes, and then they incline you to 70%, or 70 degrees, excuse me. And if your heart rate goes about 30 beats a minute and sustains itself for 10 minutes that way, then you'll have a diagnosis of POTS, unless if you pass out. If you pass out, then you automatically, they're like, nope, if we're good, POTS diagnosis, there you go. And so that's how I was diagnosed, because I made it a whole 6 minutes on my tilt table test. It was awesome. Okay. So we talked about the signs and symptoms. We talked about the quality of life. So according to the numbers that they have right now, they're estimating about 25% of people that have POTS are disabled and are unable to work. So they found that they compare POTS to the functional impairment seen in POTS patients. They compared it to those with COPD. And POTS was, just a quick bit of history. So POTS was coined in 1993 by a team of researchers at the Mayo Clinic. It's not a new illness, and it's been known by other names throughout history. But in the past, it was mistakenly believed to be caused by anxiety. So, you know, doctors saying, oh, you're anxious. And we still have that problem today, as doctors will go right towards anxiety, when really they need to start looking at the underlying problem. Now, with that said, anxiety doesn't help it by any stretch of the imagination. However, you know, we need to get doctors looking more at the underlying cause. So, and like I said, the diagnostic age is generally between the ages of 15 and 50. Now, you know, more people are now getting diagnosed at a younger age, but for me, unfortunately, I wasn't diagnosed until just this year. Again, POTS isn't a disease, it's a symptom. It's a heterogeneous, basically it means it has many causes. It's a heterogeneous group of disorders with similar manifestations. And so POTS itself isn't a disease. It's just a cluster of symptoms that are frequently seen together, and that's why it's called a syndrome and not a disease. So, and like I said, for me, my POTS is secondary to my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And that is often the case for a lot of people, is the POTS is secondary to amyloidosis, a Chiari malformation, vaccinations, hepatitis C, infections. If you've ever had mono or Epstein-Barr Lyme disease, they'll a lot of patients tend to develop POTS after that. So those are so that's some information about POTS. Now, as far as the treatment goes, you know, we want to increase our water intake, but also our sodium intake, especially if you have lower blood pressure like I do. Because my blood pressure runs as low as it does, my doctors are like, eat salt. Compression stockings, you know, we're often recommended to wear compression stockings. So, you know, sometimes medications work. I'm on metoprolol for mine. So I take 15 milligrams of metoprolol 3 times a day. I don't really see a difference. And I'm actually trying to talk my doctors into putting in a port and doing saline and lactated ringers infusions 3 to 4 times a week. But doing the infusion spread out over a few hour period, so like about 6 hours. So beta blockers, I'm on beta blockers, benzos, SSRIs, SNRIs. But a lot of people, I actually know a lot of people that do the saline infusions, and more. There's been more research that has come out that has shown that saline infusions are actually the better way to go. It's just trying to talk your team of doctors into putting a port in doing those infusions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, I'm not going to pass out for you, but I am going to show you how the heart rate raises with a person with POTS. So I've been sitting down for a little bit. I've been talking to you, but I really haven't been doing a whole heck of a lot outside of being nauseated because of all the medicines that I'm on. And so let me turn this around. Okay, so right now, just sitting down, my heart rate is at 84, which isn't too shabby. So now I'm going to stand, and I'm going to give this just a minute. And the screen isn't flashing like that. It's just, the screen isn't flashing like that. It's because of it's because of this. So there you go, brain fog. Okay, so I'm going to turn this back around now. And if you notice, just standing, my heart rate is already jumping up. So, and that's just standing. That isn't doing anything else but standing. And actually it's at 92, and that's not too bad, but I haven't been standing that long. Now if I shake or if I move around, then it's going to go up. So put that back on in a minute. So anyway, so that's your lesson on POTS today. So today I really wanted to go over, I really wanted to just talk about what POTS is and what dysautonomia is. That way we can go further in with these videos and get into the nitty-gritty and show you exactly, you know, what I go through on a daily basis and how stuff really tires me out. And so from now on, that's what you're going to be seeing is doctor's appointments and information and how you can help to spread awareness as well for POTS and dysautonomia. So with that being said, I'm going to get off of here, and I want to thank everybody for joining me on Chronically Rah-Rah, Fight for the Answers, Fight for a Cure. I know how you can be spending your time, and you chose to spend your time with me, and for that I am really, really appreciative. Also on that note, I want to take a moment to just put out my absolute heartfelt grievances and prayers for the victims and their families of the Las Vegas shootings. It was an absolutely heartbreaking. It's devastating. It's heartbreaking. It's disgusting. It's devastating. And I am just praying hard for those families and for God to show up. So if anybody on here is from Vegas or the Vegas area and you had to be a part of that horrific, absolutely horrendous event, I want you to know that my heart is absolutely bleeding for you. You are in my prayers, and you guys have millions and millions of people that are rallying around you that just love you so much and will do anything we can to get you guys all the help that you need so you can recover and become whole again. So our prayers are definitely out there for the victims and their families of the Vegas massacre. So anyway, I will be back on tomorrow, either with a pre-recorded video or a live video, and then also be sure to look for a bunch of different stuff that I put on here on the Chronically Rah-Rah page. With that being said, you guys have a wonderful evening. Happy Monday.